Hello, everyone. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thanks for taking the time to attend this half-hour session as a part of our virtual expo, Unlock AM Live, the digital post-printing experience. Today's webinar topic is the first additive manufacturing platform for production, hosted in partnership with Evolve Additive Solutions. Our guest speaker today is Andy Harkinson, the Product Management and Commercialization Director at Evolve. And today's moderator is our very own Post-Process Technologies CEO, Jeff Mize. Before we get started, I just wanted to note that this is a live interactive webinar, so there will be polling throughout and an opportunity for us to address questions at the end of the session when the chat feature is enabled. Additionally, this session will be recorded and made available for download afterwards. All right, now that I've kicked things off, I'll hand it off to you, Jeff.
Great, thanks, Diana. Well, we're very excited to have Evolve join us for part of Unlock AM Live Week here at Post Process. We've had the pleasure of partnering with Evolve for the past several years on developing a high-volume, hands-free support removal solution for their STEP technology. And the automated support removal functions essential for the volumes that the STEP technology can deliver. And in my experience, they really have a unique technology that's going to make true volume production with additive a reality, and Andy's going to get into that in a few seconds. They also have a different approach to the market. They're not approaching it from growing from prototypes into production, but thinking about how to redefine manufacturing. And so, as Diana just mentioned, it's really giving us the opportunity as an additive industry to see the first scalable Industry 4.0 solution. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Andy. And we're going to have some polling, so it's going to be interactive, and then we're going to definitely leave some time for Q&A, so please get your questions ready. Andy, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks. And I'd like to thank everybody at Post Process and Jeff for putting this together. It's a great opportunity to talk about our topic today, which is introducing the first additive manufacturing platform for production. Today's takeaway should be an understanding about Evolve STEP technology, and which is a completely new additive manufacturing process, and how it is set to overcome additive manufacturing's challenges for full-scale production. So first, I wanted to start with a polling question. So do you know Evolve? Are you aware of Evolve? Have you seen us before or run into us potentially at Formnext? And I just wanted to get a sense for how many of you have heard of us before we get going too far. So if you could take a minute and answer the polling question, and I think we can all see the results then. Great. Okay, so it looks like a vast majority of you are familiar with us, which is really great, and really good to see that we're engaging with some people that haven't heard of us before. So I would like to take a few minutes to talk about Evolve Additive Solutions, since you might not have heard about us. And as Jeff mentioned, we are different, and for a reason. We're focused entirely on full-scale production. Our mission is to produce innovative manufacturing solutions that enable customers with revolutionary new manufacturing tools and capabilities for plastics. We're headquartered in Minnetonka, Minnesota, which is a Minneapolis suburb. And we have a materials technology center based in Rochester, New York. We have 4 development systems at our headquarters in Minnetonka, and 1 is installed at a site in Europe. And our technologies and solutions are really focused on entirely around production applications with engineering thermoplastics, and we have over 100 patents on additive manufacturing technologies. So a little bit about where we are today. In 2017, we were founded when we completely spun off from Stratasys. And in 2018, we received a first round of funding and shipped our first alpha system. Today, we're on track to deliver production systems in early 2021 timeframe, and we're taking orders today and looking towards the future for the Industry 4.0 on our roadmap for factory integration. So we've really designed our roadmap and our systems around full-scale production. So to that end, we wanted to talk a little bit about Evolve is more than just systems. We produce materials and have key software capabilities. So we also have strategic partnerships around materials, systems, and controls and software. So you can see some of our partners, strategic partners on here: Evonik, Rockwell, Siemens, Kodak. So this really plays to those strengths. And our investors include Stratasys, Stanley Black & Decker, Lego, and an undisclosed investor. So Jeff, any questions about Evolve at this time? Or?
Turn my mute button off. So Andy, yeah,
Sure.
maybe you could share how mature the technology is at this juncture.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one we get asked quite a lot. Since we look like we're a 2-year-old startup, how could we have this kind of technology? So it's actually a really good getting to the core of the presentation. We'll go through some of that, but it's a very mature technology for a small startup. As I mentioned, we have 4 development systems and an alpha system installed at a site overseas. And it's really amazing to see the parts that we can print, which I'll show you also in a bit. And we'll talk a little bit more about the process and the electrophotographic part of it, which has a long history of over 20 years in a production 2D printing environment. So the key takeaway that is that our technology is quite mature for a startup. So let's get into a little bit of discussion around the problem statement. So we really started from some fundamentals of addressing what we think are the core problems in the additive space around production. Additive production scale has a lot of compromises. So Evolve is overcoming these compromises. For example, if you want to get parts in your supply chain quickly, you most probably have to compromise and pay for those higher costs with rapid tooling, or not be able to jump in the market immediately with reasonable volumes that as you ramp up injection molding. So we looked at what we call our 5 pillars. We looked at cost, we looked at speed, quality, scalability, and materials. And each of these today, really, you have to balance some compromises between them. And so we're working to eliminate those compromises. So Evolve's technology, which I'll get to, we'll talk a little bit more about STEP in the next couple of slides, is positioned to deliver all of these really without compromising one for the other. So we're all aware of these trade-offs between cost and speed in many cases, or speed and quality. And likewise, there might be some compromises on the materials that you're using in additive manufacturing that might not be the same performance or quality as expected from injection molding. So we're taking all of these into account with our system, materials, and our software as an entire platform. We also have a scalability roadmap into advanced manufacturing and automation on the factory floor. So as I mentioned before, we've really designed our process and our system from the ground up, thinking about production. So that's a key difference. And that really gets us to the SVP production platform, which is our solution with a grounds up design to overcome these compromises. It's the scalable volume production system, the Evolve SVP. And I mentioned we have a number of development systems, all of which are leading to this final production system. I can say we can deliver mass customization, just-in-time production, and unmatched quality for all at the same time. But it goes beyond what we see as the 5 key pillars that we're overcoming that are core challenges to the additive manufacturing industry when it comes to these at production scale. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the additive technology STEP, and let's dive into that. So in many cases, this is a process that is similar to injection molding on a small scale. What we've added to this is an electrophotographic process. So STEP is selective thermoplastic electrophotographic process. And and we'll get into this a little bit more, but we're taking technology that's been really used for many years in a 2D production environment, and we brought that into the additive manufacturing environment. So really our first challenge is to get you to forget all of that you've seen about other additive technologies. So when we're at trade shows and when we're discussing this technology, there's a lot of questions about, is it a derivative? Is it, what is this? It's really a new process. It's not powder bed, it's not MJF, it's not SLA, it's not SLS, it's not a derivative really of any existing additive technologies today. So there is, many of you might have seen us at FormNext, and this was kind of a big hurdle in understanding how we're different. We're not derivative, we are different. STEP is selective thermoplastic electrophotographic process, as I mentioned. And the core of our technology is the electrophotographic imaging and deposition. This is really well understood in the 2D printing industry for high volume printing, and we've adapted and added to that. We create a 2D slice of a part with part material, support, and maybe other materials all in one image layer. Then with heat, pressure, and cooling, fuse it all onto the build. So this creates a fully dense part with isotropic properties in all directions. So on a very small scale, again, this is very similar to injection molding, and we can elaborate on that a little bit in the next slide. So there's really a good video that shows this. We had some trouble getting the video to run over the webinar today, so you can check it out at this Vimeo link. But we'll go through some of the key points of the process. I wanted to spend a few minutes on that. So step one is the electrophotographic section, or the print engines that use our part and support toner. It's essentially a Kodak NextPress printer. So in a 2D high volume printing environment, we're using that in a modified version. 5 print engines allow us to create parts with up to 4 materials. So you can think of in the 2D process, you'd have black, blue, in the 2D process, you'd have cyan, magenta, yellow, black. In our process, we're taking toner materials that we've tonerized the material. And you could think now you can print black, blue, ABS, PIBA, nylon. You print all of these as an image, all at the same time. So we can do this where part and support are put down all at once. So that's important point there too.
So Andy, quick question. So are you doing a layer of support and then build and then color, or maybe explain that process just in a little more detail?
Yeah, it's and we'll get into it here. It's really a good point. So we're imaging all of the parts of the support and the material all at the same time. So if you were to say print a black and a blue part next to each other with support material, that's all going on one image, and then that image is transferred all at once. So we'll get into that a little bit here. The slide or picture 2 here shows the materials that we developed. So we're working on different toners. We have ABS toner, we have some others, nylon, PIBA, and we're continually developing materials. It's a small particle toner. It's about 20 microns, which is actually bigger than the toner that's used in a printing process, which is on the 6 micron scale. So it's actually a little bit bigger and easier to use on the scale that we're talking for additive. And then if we get into 3, 4, and 5 here, in 3, 4, and 5, we're taking an image from the electrophotographic process. It's being developed onto this roller we can see in 4, and then laid down onto a belt. So it's using electrostatic charges and transferring this image to a continuous belt. And this relies on precise closed loop control for alignment, placement, and thickness. And we've conquered a lot of these challenges that around aligning. A lot of this has been done in the 2D industry, controlling thickness on the layers. All of this has been overcome with our system. And while that image then is moved on the belt to the build area, it is heated, and the next slice is developed and put on the belt. So it's a continuous belt, a continuous process, and the slice is transferred to the belt where it's heated and transferred to the build plate. So in 7 here, we see the slices heated on the belt and then rolled onto a moving build plate under heat and pressure, and cooled as a layer on top of the build. So in 8, we're going to see that the build plan indexes down in the vertical axis and cycles back in the horizontal to be ready for the next image to be fused on the top. So, and then at the end, we have a representation of the build. Here, the support material is shown as transparent. In actuality, it's opaque. But you can see the idea here, and check out the video because it really narrates this and goes through the process better. But we're imaging, we're transferring that image as support and part material all in one slice down under heat and pressure, forming it onto the build plate. We've had some questions about how robust electrophotography is for the production environment, and let me address that. There's nearly 20 years, well, there's actually more than 20 years of using electrophotographic process in a 2D environment. And we have over 100 patents that describe the developments needed to bring this to the market. So the parts we produce really attest to our capabilities, and I want to really focus on those sorts of things. So if we could jump to, I think we've got a polling question right now. Do you feel that 3D printed parts can live up to the standards of injection molded parts? So this might be just a question in terms, in your general sense of, can they live up to injection molding on strength, on part finish, on quality, on material sets? You might take all those into account and see if you think that can live up to the injection molding standards.
Should have the results here momentarily.
All right, great. Yeah, and I do encourage you to check out our website with the video and the Vimeo video, because that really shows where we're at with the technology. It looks like it's pretty close here, yes and no for living up to those standards of injection molding. So that's really great. It shows that there's some optimism that we can get there, but there's probably a little skepticism too. So I want to overcome some of that and talk about the parts that we can produce today. Really, I think that the point is that Evolve has proven our step technology, and we really can produce parts that are on par with injection molded parts. And we will get into that a little bit right now. So under our applications development, we have created some really amazing parts, and people are pretty much blown away by our as printed surface quality. And I'll talk a little bit more about this as we go through it, but we have produced some parts with multicolor, multi-material, and parts that are really well suited for plating. So you can see some examples here on the scale and the size and the resolution we have. There's a little fidget spinner with the gears and a piston kind of thing that we've got. And that was printed all as basically blue, black ABS and support material, and we washed the support material away. The ABS parts are also very well suited for plating. So you can see an example of some plated parts there. They're all built on one tray with a part number built onto it. So it's easy to keep mass customized parts together. We can do shell and core. We can control custom blends at the voxel level, and I'll show that on our next slide. But we talked really about these parts being fully fused, and I wanted to show an example of this scanning electron microscope image showing where the part has been fractured. So this is a part at 500 magnification, and you really don't see any layer lines present. So I talked about the 20 micron particle size, and we're melting these under heat and pressure and fully fusing them to the part. So we're getting a isotropic part that fractures like the isotropic part. It's not fracturing along layer lines. And these parts are also fully dense, so there's no voids in them. So no unintentional voids, making these parts excellent for pneumatic applications or parts where you need to sterilize. And actually these little wheel gears here that are kind of in the center below the black and blue part, we've also printed Evolve. These are about the size of a $50. We've printed Evolve on the insides of those spokes. It's a little hard to see on these pictures, but and here's some other examples. Really getting into the multi-materials of ABS and showing some different colors. You can see the scale of the dial here. Let's see if I can play a video to show animation of it turning. So we made a smaller incremented dial. We've made a pen where we put basically the ink cartridge and the spring in to show that we can do some fine resolution. We have Evolve printed on the clip there. So you can really see some of the finish here. The part on the left is shown, I think, just as support removal was done. So we've washed away the support, and we haven't done any bead blasting or vapor smoothing. So you get a very high surface quality finish. And then we've also done some multi-materials, so combining materials in one print. So the real important takeaway from this about our parts that we're printing is that we can create fully functional toggle type parts with PIBA and the spring as the spring and ABS as the lever and the base. We also have voxel level control and printed a fully dense gradient part of ABS blending to PIVA. So this could be used for applications like a whip antenna with a solid base transitioning to a flexible housing. And this is really a unique capability to engineer completely new properties by controlling the placement of materials on that voxel level. So that dog bone that you see on the right there, that's really it's a gradient, and we've shown the CAD below. We just put the voxel gradient in from ABS to PIVA. And you could really engineer any kind of structure that you wanted with multiple materials. So these were all done as single prints. So it's, we're really proud of the materials that we've and parts that we've printed. It's really pretty amazing, and that's what blows people away. So we wanted to talk about a few of the other areas where we're different as a total solution from others. Support is a basic water solution, and this is where support removal equipment like post-process comes in. So while we say on the left there, no post-processing, we're really differentiating between support removal and part surface finishing. So meaning while you can bead blast or vapor smooth parts if you need to, in a great many of applications, it's really not needed. So to just clarify, support removal is still needed, and this is really where systems like post-process come in to wash away the support and dissolve it. And we need capabilities that are at these high volumes for part creation. And there's other qualities that differentiate us that I spoke about in the slide before. And we want to get, I see we're running down on time here, and we want to leave some question time here. But where does the future lead? So there's been a lot of talk about Industry 4.0 and what we're actively planning for this. Our product roadmap incorporates much of the thought leadership of integrating into a factory automated factory environment. So not a lot of manufacturing enterprises really have a full Industry 4.0 plan. Less than 15% do. And this is really that entire integration. And so when we say we think production from the ground up for Evolve, we're really thinking about how all of this fits together into a high-level production environment. And this really brings us to our future vision of where an Evolve step printer would fit into an industry environment. So long-term vision, an Evolve system is integrated into a true automated production line that can include support removal, paint, plating, embedding electronics, and more. And this vision is to integrate into the workflow is really key to unlocking additive manufacturing's potential and to fully realize this value in production. And I think we've got another question here, just to get a sense of, has your organization really considered looking at additive manufacturing for the production of plastic parts? And so really around this question, is it something that you've been thinking about, some way you might really integrate that into your production environment?
Yeah, and one quick comment while people are answering, I think with what's happened with the pandemic and a number of companies looking at doing more onshoring of critical components, it'll be interesting to see if things have changed over the past couple of months as the landscape for manufacturing is definitely changing.
Yeah, that's a great, we've had a lot of interest and inquiries and printed some parts for things like ventilators and other devices, and it's really been interesting. I've been on a lot of webinars lately that have talked about how to really onshore and have this scalable demand for higher volume things that are production parts, not just prototyping. It's not to say you can't use our system for prototyping. You could prototype really rapidly and move straight into production. So, but so it looks like everybody pretty much yes that we're thinking about additive production scale kinds of parts. So that's really great to hear. So I think we've got a few minutes left for some Q&A here. I kind of went through a lot of this fast. I wanted to thank everybody and thank our host today for allowing Evolve to give us the opportunity to talk about our step additive process and how we're bringing this to market with our SVP system, platform, and materials. And I would entertain any questions right now if any are coming across here, and I think actually I need to jump in and look
Yeah.
at chat.
Yeah, and also too, we'll have give folks access to the presentation. And I would encourage you, as you mentioned, Andy, the Vimeo video link really shows the speed at which you're producing parts. So I'd encourage folks that are interested in the technology to watch that. So first question we have, how big is the build space?
Good question. The build space is 300 millimeters by 600 millimeters by 100 millimeters on our SVP system. So that's 12-inch by 24-inch by 4-inch. So any number of parts or part sizes that can fit in that space, we can build. So probably for a full list of specifications, check out our website. We have a resources page that has our spec sheet and some other white papers and other material out on the website.
Got it.
Another question that came in, what durometer range can you print in?
That is a good question. I will have to answer that on our social media or on our website. I think the PIBA, we do have a LinkedIn post on our PIBA part that we printed with that. I can't remember what Shore D was. I think I don't want to misquote myself, but check out our LinkedIn page. We did do a durometer test on the PIBA part. I want to say, yeah.
Okay. And then another question, what is the expected maximum output of parts on your system before it comes more cost effective to move to injection molding?
It depends on the scale of the parts that you're fitting in the build. But I think we're talking between 10 and 100,000 parts per year, depending on the size and the shape and the scale of the parts. And it also depends a lot on the part features. So we're going to have some white papers and some short papers coming out comparing with injection molding. So we've got a good demo part example that really shows some features like micro injection molded features that you really can't do in injection molding, and so those are being kind of parts that you no bid that really we can do. So there's some kind of thoughts on crossover. If you're going to just produce them in additive, then you could include those features, or if you're going to scale up to injection molding, you might have to take those features out so that you can run into the multi-million parts a year. And it's really, it is cost effective, when you're running more shifts and you're using more material, the cost gets better too. And I think, let's see, on the question of what fits in the build space too, I think we've heard some other questions of, what kind of parts, what should I think of when I think of something that would work well with STEP? And it's really about parts that might fit in your hand. It could be complex assemblies with really good surface finish, complex manifolds or internal structures that need a fully dense part. They could be living hinges, clips, or parts that are that combine hard and flexible materials. So those are some other questions we've had about what kind of parts. So we're not going to be printing like surfboards or large things like that, but for a vast majority of these complex parts, enclosures, electronics enclosures, that's what we expect to be printing.
Yeah, there's also a question here. Yeah, there's a question here I see, Diana, about multi-materials. Can you share a little bit more, Andy, about multi-material parts?
Yeah, so we've got ABS, we've got nylon, so a PA6, a PA11, and we've got the PIBA parts that we printed. And I mentioned, we're more than just a system, we're a materials company also. And so we're doing a lot of materials development to tonerize these materials, to develop materials that have the exact properties that customers need and want. So, and then working with those materials together in a multi-material format. So you can see that we did some of the voxel level control. And again, we're printing them all on the same, we image everything all at the same time. So you could conceivably put a couple of different materials next to each other along with the support material. So we showed the black and the blue, a lot of those parts. We're doing a slice, so you get a slice of the blue and the black and the support material all in one slice, and you put it together. And it's, it creates a lot of those really amazing multi-material parts. So
speaking of materials, there is one other question about materials. Will there ever be a potential to use fiber reinforcement? Carbon fiber, aramid?
Yeah, good question. We're looking into what we can do around those areas. So because we're tonerizing the particles, I think that the filament sizes are potentially limited by that, but it's also an area of research that we're looking at because it's really, that is an important aspect too.
Okay. Maybe let's go 1 minute over since we have a bunch of questions. And that being said, Evolve can certainly follow up separately with your questions after the fact. How do you position the step process on the ISO ASTM standards concerning AM processes classification?
Yeah, that's a good area that we haven't really talked about or gotten into the ISO standards. I need to look into that further. So we need to.
Great.
Yep.
And then a couple more print specific. What is the average run time?
For two of those builds, or I'd say for each build is about 4 hours. So 2 builds, we can do 2 at the same time. So you'd have basically an 8-hour double build space, which allows you to get quite a few parts through there. And when we were talking about support removal, that's a lot of part and support volume that you're moving through a factory to create this volume of parts. So we really needed something in a production environment that is going to really deliver and not be a bottleneck. And so when we're talking about these automated support removal processes, it's something that will handle this kind of volume, which is really, really a big thing. I also had another question too about the surface finish. So like what kind of surface finish we can achieve. So when I mentioned post-processing and bead blasting, vapor smoothing and things like that, we've demonstrated better than a RA 1.5 micron, better than that for parts that just have the support removed. So we dissolve the support away and we can get part finish surface quality like that without vapor smoothing or bead blasting. So doing those other things can actually even improve the surface finish further.
Great.
Okay, maybe just one more question that maybe you can follow up on after, but asking if you have the ability to benchmark.
Yes, yeah, we can benchmark against some other parts or technologies if we'd like. We've engaged with a number of prospective customers to compare parts, to do materials tests on tensile strength and fracture toughness and things like that. So, I guess back to the ISO standards question, we're testing materials to different standards, maybe ISO 527 or some other standards that are just around the plastics testing, and we can provide results for tensile strength and fracture toughness. So, I'll get some more detail around the AM ISO standards too to answer that question in a little bit more detail.
Okay, well, we should probably wrap up. A lot of information, Andy, in a half an hour there, so thank you very much. The other questions we couldn't get to, we will follow up with those. We'll send them on to Andy, and Evolve will follow up. And then if we just go to the last slide, there's a number of additional Unlock AM Live sessions over the course of the next 3 days. So please feel free to join us. Diana, any closing comments?
Nope. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Andy. We hope to see you at another one of the Unlock AM Live events this week. And everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.